Little Nightmares 2 in a way raised more questions than answering them. Now that's not a bad thing, as most times, many cryptic stories end on an anticlimactic conclusion, but Little Nightmares 2 makes you crave for more. In today's video, we'll go over the ending in depth and discuss some theories which might explain what happened. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator, and here is Little Nightmares 2 ending explained. Before we get into the video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and be aware, as there will be monumental spoilers ahead. To understand the ending better, let's catch up with what happened prior to the ending. Mono, a paper bag wearing kid, wakes up from a dream where he sees a door with an eye symbol on it. Behind the boy lays a TV with statics on. Mono finds Six without her signature raincoat imprisoned in a house while playing with a music box and having a drawing of a gnome on the wall holding hands. This might suggest that Six has already been to the mall, or the very least, the nest, and is aware of the gnomes. Mono and Six manage to shoot and presumably kill the hunter after getting cornered by him. Soon after, they travel to the Pale City, where the buildings are warped. In the city, the only remnants of the residents are their left behind clothes, seemingly disappearing out of blue as they were busy doing their daily routine. Mono has his first encounter with a TV static, which teleports him into the corridor with the mysterious door with the eye symbol on his dreams. But more on that later. Mono and Six enter the school where they face off the teacher and the bullies. The bullies kidnap Six, leaving Mono behind, but Mono manages to find Six and frees her. Strange that she didn't get killed here though. Mono and Six escape the teacher and subsequently leave the school. Mono picks up a paper boat where we witness a transmission figure of a child miming eating something. Could this be the memory of a Six who has already or yet to eat a gnome? At this point, Mono finds a yellow raincoat and offers it to Six as it's raining. Six wears the raincoat as if it's the first time she has worn it. The raincoat is lying in a room full of packages with two having pictures of gnomes. And how did the raincoat even get here? Did it get washed here from the nest? Wouldn't it just be left on the shore? Is it part of the paradox? Mono and Six enter the hospital where they encounter the mannequin patients and the doctor who crawls on the ceiling. They escape the doctor while Six just sits next to the incinerator and Mono enters it. The doctor dismisses Six, strangely, and chases after Mono into the incinerator. They trap the doctor in and set him ablaze, killing him. Soon after, they encounter the viewers who only care about watching their TVs and only get hostile when the TV is off, with one thing in their mind: to only find another TV. Mono then has another experience with a static TV. This time he manages to open the door and sees a tall, thin man seated. The man stands up before Six pulls Mono out. The thin man subsequently gets out of the TV, presumably freed now, and kidnaps Six, leaving her shadow figure behind. Mono uses his powers and teleports through the TV, where he gets watched by an eye monster residing in the TV transmission. This eye is presumably the symbol throughout the Little Nightmares world. After another pursuit by the Thin Man, Mono has a final face-off with him. Now, let's go over what happened at the end. Mono takes his paper bag off and goes full badass in here, displaying his transmissional powers. He makes the Thin Man evaporate, who looks like a shadow figure himself. Then Mono enters the radio tower, where laws of physics are all scrambled up. Mono finds Six being deformed and larger in size with long limbs. It's very peculiar, as Six never dies or gets killed after getting kidnapped. Six is identical to the viewers in aspect of being attracted to an object, in this case a music box, which she doesn't leave and becomes hostile without it. Mono hits the music box and teleports into another realm. After a bit of pickle with the monster Six, Mono destroys the music box, which lets Six get back into her normal form. The eye then enlarges and starts engulfing this realm. Mono and Six try to cross a thin bridge into a transmission. Six manages to get to the end, but the bridge breaks, leading to Mono jumping into the ledge on the other side. Six briefly holds Mono's arm, but lets go of him, letting him drop into the depth of darkness while walking into the transmission herself. Mono explores the depth and finds a chair atop a hill like goo. As he sits atop it, the eyes surround him and we get treated with a time-lapse of Mono transforming into a larger man and eventually into the Thin Man himself. As the time-lapse occurs, Mono becomes more like a transmission with ashes rising above him. This creates a perfect time loop where a young Mono frees his old self before killing himself and eventually ending up having the same fate, being imprisoned until his younger self frees him. This might suggest that the Eye creates this loop to gain control over the Little Nightmares world, using Mono's transmissional abilities, as the Eye monster resides within the TV transmission. Then finally, in the post-credit scene, Six crosses past the transmission, where she's greeted by her shadow figure having a bout of hunger, who then looks at a picture of the Ma while having a casted shadow resembling a gnome. Now let's go over some possible theories about who the perpetrators are, what are the origins of Six and Mono, who the monster is, why Little Nightmares world is so distorted, and what the hell is going on in general. One of the likely theories is that the Eye controls the Little Nightmares world, but for him to be able to do so is by gaining access to our realm. The Eye resides in a realm where laws of physics are distorted and people become distorted themselves, respectively. Firstly, for the Eye to gain access to the other realm, he needs the means of teleportation. But the monster would not be able to do that as it's very large and doesn't have a specific physical form. Maybe it wouldn't even survive in the other realm. It's like a goo. It just needs to leech on other life forms, so how would he do any of that? The Eye uses Mono, a child gifted with teleportation and transmissional abilities through the TV, which opens the door to different realms. Mono allows the Eye monster to gain access to the TV sets of normal, everyday people when he first opens the door and sets the Thin Man loose, and uses the TV to teleport himself subsequently, seeing the Eye for the very first time, and quite possibly gets used at the end by the Eye to the point of dilapidation into an evaporating transmission, before a younger, healthier Mono breaks into his world again, with a chair waiting for him to sit on. The Eye possesses powers which control people, but for that, he needs to create an object for each person to get attached to, and therefore put under control. The viewers get possessed by watching TV. They might have previously watched a lot of TV, therefore due to the interdimensional realms, their faces get deformed. The teacher becomes possessed by the school and teaching, losing sense of whom she teaches and gets a long neck to observe the students better. The doctor gets possessed by the hospital and healing people, making mannequins come to life and experimenting on them, and gets suspended on the ceiling to have easier access to the patients. The hunter, on the other hand, is debatable. He had a mask on similar to Mono, to possibly resist the TV transmissions, and he possibly did taxidermy and made people look alive to combat his loneliness, presuming that he actually had dogs as well, evident from dog doors in his house. It's possible he chased after Mono and Six, assuming that they are there to harm him, like the viewers. That's why he has traps everywhere, but again, that's a theory. He could just as well be possessed with hunting like the other perpetrators. Six becomes obsessed with her music box and gets longer limbs to protect it better, and I assume she's not fully healed at the very end, and that's why she gets rid of Mono and has her bouts of hunger. And finally, Mono himself gets rid of his paper bag and gets trapped in a room for years until he becomes a transmission, becoming the Thin Man, getting possessed by his own powers. This is a difficult one to answer. Some evidence suggests that it's a prequel and some other that it's a sequel. The creators have mentioned officially that it's a sequel and Very Little Nightmares is a prequel. So let's dissect them and see which makes more sense. I'll briefly discuss this according to my knowledge when I'm making this video. I'm planning to make another one discussing some more theories of what happened in the game. A drawing in a room Six was imprisoned in suggests that she's seen gnomes before. The only two places with gnomes are the nest and the maw, so she must have been in one at least. At the end of the Secrets of the Maw DLC, we get a TV transmission with an image of the Thin Man, so he's fully grown at this stage, which brings about more questions as the Thin Man was destroyed by the end of Little Nightmares 2. Six traveled to the Maw right after trapping Mono in the depths of the Eye monster, and according to the time lapse, it took Mono some time to transform into the Thin Man. So maybe 6 was in the Maw before meeting Mono and respectively destroying the Thin Man, unless the time works differently and is much faster within the monster's realm, which made Mono grow into a fully grown Thin Man very quickly. We then get a transdimensional shadow of 6, presumably miming eating something, maybe the gnome before they find the raincoat. 6 doesn't recognize the raincoat and it's placed in a room with packages and pictures of gnomes. 6 could have her memory wiped, but how would the raincoat end up here? The packages with gnomes suggest that they're sent here from the Maw or the nest, but who transports them and for whom? It's possible that the raincoat got washed ashore after the events of the nest and 6 never wore it. But the ending did somehow suggest that 6 wore it, as it ended with an insinuation. When the Thin Man kidnaps 6, that's the first time we see her shadow figure, which appears every time she gives in to her hunger in the Maw. This might suggest Thin Man interacting with 6 distorted her realities and created another part of her which gives in to hunger, similarly to the other perpetrators who all lose control, which some could be hunger, TV addiction, and music box possessiveness. So this might suggest that 6 developed her appetite here before going to the Maw, which makes these events prior to the events of the Maw, but are they? Later, a seemingly evil 6 drops Mono to his presumable death while observing her shadow figure without being phased, having a bout of hunger and going to the Maw. You could also say that she didn't have her powers here, which she obtained from consuming the lady. So there are some strong correlations that this is an actual prequel. But at the same time, the time and space is distorted in this world. And we already know the Eye has created a time loop, and a loop doesn't have any edges or corners. So the beginning and the end are scrambled. We can't say if the events first started from Mono appearing out of the blue in the wilderness or with 6 in the Maw. Tying in the nest story proves even more difficult, but more on that later on another video, as I've got many theories written down which would make this video very long. And that about does it for this video, folks. I just want to thank every one of you for the insane support. The last few days have been amazing, which have encouraged me to make even more videos and focus more on YouTube. I'm working on another video about more theories of Little Nightmares 2, you know the drill. You can stay tuned by hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell. I've been your host R. Till the next one, have a fantastic day.